Hi, everyone. Thank you for being part of the virtual program for the Charter Workplace Summit. I'm joined here by Brigid Schulte. She's a journalist and director of the Better Life Lab, the Work Family Justice and Intersectional Gender Equity Program at New America. Her book, Overwhelmed: Work, Love, and Play When No One Has the Time, was a New York Times bestseller. And she's just out with a new book titled Overwork: Transforming the Daily Grind in the Quest for a Better Life. Thank you for joining us today, Brigid.
Oh, it's so great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, in the introduction to Overwork, your new book, you catalog some of the ways that work is failing Americans, including because of overwork, lack of support for caregivers, and precarity. And you describe the book as, quote, a journey to find hope in the change agents who are driven by dreams of a different way of working and living and acting to make them real. In the book, you provide from your reporting tangible tools and strategies to make work better. And I hope we can spend this time talking through some of them. And you break them down by individuals, organizations, and policymakers. So let's start with individuals. What can individuals do to make work better?
Well, the first thing that I say and is to be aware of these larger forces, to understand sort of the water that we're swimming in, and that right now and sort of the now and the future of work, we have these stories that hard work pays off, and it really hasn't been for a lot of people for a long time. So you've got people in knowledge and professional jobs who are expected to work long hours in one job. And then you've got on the other end of the spectrum, you've got hourly service retail workers. I've never seen people work harder. The book is filled with stories and reporting, and they're working several different jobs or jobs and side gigs just to make ends meet. So people are working hard, in some cases superhumanly hard, and it's not paying off. Sort of the promise of hard work isn't paying off for everyone. It's paying off for some, no doubt about it, but it's not equitable across the board. So first of all, be aware of that. So what can you do right here, right now, as an individual? And the first thing I do, I tell people, like looking at all of the different research, is just stop, just pause. We have these pressures to overwork, the pressures to either be busy or look busy, and just stop. Sometimes you can get sort of this breathless, where do I start? Well, I've got so much to do. And the research shows that that leads to what's called tunneling, where our vision sort of narrows and our IQ actually drops. So get out of the tunnel, stop, start to kind of just breathe and think about what's most important, in your work, in your life that day, and focus the two things that you can really control. There's a lot we can't, but what we can control is our time and our attention. So really think very clearly about what is my priority, and then figure out, well, how does that work? How can I schedule that into my day? How can I take more control of my time? And some of the research that we've done, it was amazing. You would talk to people and they would say, I've been so busy, I've been flying through my day. And then I get to the end of it and I haven't even started that one most important thing. We heard that over and over and over again. And I heard that a lot in my reporting over the years. And so some of that goes back to like, take back control of your schedule. You've got a big project. Where does that go in your day? Create that space for it. Communicate it. Let people know during this period, do not interrupt me. Create sort of chunking your time. When are you available? When are you going to be concentrated and really working on that? And then you find that then that's the work that tends to give people meaning and fulfillment. And so then your day feels better. So the last thing that I would say is, think of your calendar less like a crowded pantry that you're going to shove a bunch of stuff onto and then get this sort of charge. Look at how busy I am, how amazing, I've got all this stuff done. At the end of the day, it's a lot of low value stuff. Think about it. A behavioral scientist told me, think about your calendar more like an art gallery. Choose one really important thing. Spend time and energy on that. Don't be in a meeting and then answering emails. So you're sort of half paying attention to everything. So you have white space before to prepare, be in that moment, that you've spent time preparing for, and then have white space afterwards so that you have time to complete tasks or process or go, and then choose the next thing to go to. So You know, those can be very small, but small steps lead to bigger change.
Yeah, and so what I'm hearing is two things in a way. One is just being aware of the context, which is people are bearing the weight on themselves of structural things like lack of support for caregivers or precarious hours or job situations or that sort of thing. So you're saying like know that effectively it's a structural thing and not just your own shortcoming that is part of it. And then secondly, in the busyness of the hard work that people are doing, trying to take control within that within that work itself as a way to have a better life effectively within the work that you're doing. Is that a fair
Yeah,
recap?
yeah, no, I think that that's really fair. And the other thing that's really important in all of that is to, when you're thinking about your priorities and making time and what you're going to pay attention to, work is not just what you do for pay. It's also all of that unpaid work of care and home outside of work. And remember that that needs time and space and value as well. Um, in the workplaces that may not recognize that. That's why I really want people to focus on their priorities, what their performance is, and then communicate it. Because often what gets rewarded is presence, is that sort of performance of busyness. And so when you can really show what you've created of value, that's another way of, creating larger change. What I tell people, I love tips and tricks, but they're never going to be enough. So think about them as a way to put an oxygen mask on yourself so that then you can be part of a larger change in your team, in your organization, in public policy, in our larger culture.
What about at the organizational level? What can organizations do to make work better for more people?
Well, first of all, I mean, there's so many things, and I had to boil it down to 10 in the appendix. And I know we don't have a whole lot of time here, but I think the first thing, and we sort of talked about it, so many organizational leaders, managers, you hear a lot of conversation about well-being. Here's burnout, the costs of work stress, mental health, isolation. And there's an awful lot of what I ended up calling, or other people have called, well-being washing, a lot of kind of talking and hand-wringing about it, and really not really being very effective in dealing with it. Because a lot of what that does is it's sort of like a blame the individual. If you're burned out, it's an individual problem that then you individually need to solve. So maybe the answer is some wellness program or lunchtime yoga or a meditation app. So, or you go and take a walk. Now, listen, I love all of those things, and those are all important, and I love a hot bath, so I'm not saying that that's not something to do, but that doesn't get to the root of what's really driving work stress or burnout. And what I want people, organizations in particular, to understand is that it's a systems problem. And so it requires a systems and a structural solution. One of the chapters in the book, I look at what researchers call these 10 psychosocial stressors that have really driven so much acute and chronic ill health over time, that work itself has become the fifth leading cause of death. Long work hours lead to 120,000 excess deaths a year. So not only is that bad for business and bad for life, it's just a complete and utter waste. It's so unnecessary. So for organizations, what you can do is understand there's sort of this relationship between effort and reward. So make sure you do not have a toxic workplace. Make sure that if you've done a layoff, don't expect fewer and fewer people to do more and more stuff. You have to go and right size your processes. Do you have enough people to do the work? What is the work that you're doing, and define it? One of the things that the reporting really showed me is how much ambiguity is out there that then drives overwork, because people aren't sure what to do, or if you're in an organization that values the input of sitting in a chair, or kind of physically being online, or the virtual presence. If you value that busyness culture, if you value long work hours, the input rather than the output, that's a lot of what drives stress and burnout. So what I would say to organizational leaders is be focused on the systems. really right size the workload, your staff, um, and really be focused on the performance, the impact that you want in the world, the value, and get out of the mindset that if somebody works long hours, they're the best employees, because the research is clear that that's counterproductive to productivity. It disadvantages workers with care responsibilities, workers with disabilities, workers of color, all of the people that you need to have a robust, diverse, inclusive, and innovative culture. So kind of get out of that rewarding long work hours mindset. That and looking at systems change are just two really important things that organizations could be doing.
That's great. We just have about a minute left, and what you just said, I think, applies to managers as well. But is there any additional things that you would say if I'm a team manager that I could do to actually, based on your research and reporting, would be most meaningful for improving the workplace and the experience of workers?
So for managers, what I will say, I looked at work redesigns pre-COVID. I looked at COVID experiments. I looked at the short work hours movement. And what I found was, everybody did different things, but there was sort of a universal process. And what I would say, it all boils down to, well, first of all, believe. Leadership mindset and belief is huge. For managers, ask, listen, and act. So many work redesigns or experiments come from this sort of top down, we know best, and we're going to force you to kind of dance to our tune. And those never work. So if you ask people, what are your pain points? What do you think would work best? We want to do things better. Really ask people, listen to what they say, incorporate, sort of co-design with them. That's what leads to what I have found in my reporting, the best bright spots, the best work redesigns, and honestly, really effective, dynamic, inclusive, and exciting shorter work hours and work cultures.
Brigid, thank you for sharing these takeaways from your new book and your years of reporting on work. Brigid Schulte's book is Overwork: Transforming the Daily Grind in the Quest for a Better Life. So thank you for that. There's a lot more in your book, obviously. And for those of you who are joining this virtually at the Charter Workplace Summit, hang in there. We'll resume programming in just a minute.